This incident stands as one of the most brutal episodes of violence ever witnessed in Glasgow. A driver found himself relentlessly pursued across the urban sprawl in a harrowing chase that peaked at speeds of 100 miles per hour, involving 2 other vehicles. Trapped after a tense pursuit, he was then subjected to a savage assault that resulted in a prolonged hospital stay and left him with permanent scars. Today's tale is not for those with a weak heart, so please keep this in mind while tuning in. Stick around to uncover the perpetrators behind this dreadful attack and to learn if this was a manifestation of an ongoing feud within the Glasgow underworld. Welcome to the Pursuit of Perpetrators channel, where I unravel the veiled tales of cryptic crimes. Earlier that evening, Stephen Daniel, affectionately known as Bonzo to his family, had been at High Cross Stadium watching the Rangers soccer team take on Aberdeen. The 39-year-old father was on his way back to his home in Bishop Briggs when he noticed that his Skoda Octavia was being followed by an Audi S3 and a VW Golf. Concerned for his safety, Daniel accelerated, but he was eventually trapped near the M8 motorway at Port Dundas. The confrontation culminated with the Audi's occupants savagely attacking his face. Daniel was urgently taken to the nearby Glasgow Royal Infirmary, where surgeons fought tirelessly to save his life. His nose was nearly completely cut off, and his injuries were so critical that the police initially believed he had been shot at point-blank range. It was later determined that Daniel's survival was likely due to the proximity of the hospital and the fortunate presence of a highly skilled surgeon on duty that evening. The Audi S3 involved in the chase was found abandoned and set ablaze in an attempt to obliterate any evidence. Nonetheless, a blood-stained machete, used in the gruesome assault, was overlooked and left in the back seat. Detectives would later uncover cold-hearted messages on WhatsApp discussing the assassination attempt exchanged by members of the so-called Cleaver Gang. One of the messages exchanged read, "Feeling good about today, buddy?" The response came back, "Absolutely, mate. Heard he's lost his sight." This reply was punctuated with a laughing face emoji. Another message chimed in, "Yeah, buddy." Among the shared content in the WhatsApp conversation were pictures of the cleaver believed to have been used in the assault, lying on the back seat of the burned-out Audi. After Daniel was discharged from the hospital, his residence was placed under continuous police surveillance to protect him from potential further attempts on his life. His near-fatal encounter was the peak of a series of 5 similar incidents occurring over the last 6 months. Ryan Fitzsimmons, 34, Gary Petty, 22, Thomas Billsland, 31, and a 29-year-old relative, whose identity is protected for legal reasons, were also victims of related attacks. The incident involving the unnamed cousin occurred when his vehicle was forcefully stopped, and he was pursued into a house in Robroyston in December 2016. There, he suffered 2 strikes to the back of his head, with an object resembling either a hatchet or a machete. A month later, Thomas Billsland endured a fractured skull after an ambush in the Cranhill neighborhood of Glasgow. Gary Petty became a target following his visit to an Italian eatery in Maryhill in March 2017. In the subsequent month, Ryan Fitzsimmons, who once served in the military, was left in a coma with brain injuries following an ambush outside the home he shared with his mother in Clydebank, attacked with both a sword and a hammer. Yet it seemed the primary target of this string of violence was Stephen Bonzo Daniel, who fell victim to a vicious assault on May 18, 2017. During their meticulous investigation, detectives discovered tracking devices attached to Daniel's Skoda and on the vehicles of the other victims. The tracker on the Skoda was pivotal, enabling the assailants to monitor Daniel's movements from Ibrox Stadium on the night he was attacked. This device, a first of its kind to be utilized in Scotland, was procured from a firm based in Manchester. The employment of such tracking technology enabled law enforcement to connect 6 individuals to the series of ferocious assaults. These men were brought before the High Court in Glasgow in January 2019, facing charges related to the various plots to commit murder. Security measures were exceptionally stringent during the trial, with armed officers stationed around the courthouse and an influx of people observed entering the premises. Each day, the van transporting the 6 defendants was accompanied by a police escort en route to the court. The jury was presented with striking CCTV footage capturing the moment Daniel's car was struck, amid a high-speed pursuit through Glasgow's northern areas. The assailants had utilized tracking devices to monitor his movements meticulously, enabling them to seize the opportune moment for their attack. It was conveyed to the jury that these assaults stemmed from a long-standing conflict between 2 antagonistic crime groups in Glasgow. the Lyons and the Daniel families. The defendants were identified as affiliates of the Lyons, with their alleged targets having connections to the Daniel family. In his testimony, Stephen Daniel presented a contrasting narrative. He maintained that he had no adversaries prior to the assault and refuted any conflict with the Lyons. He further denied any involvement of his family in organized crime, a claim that was met with skepticism. The jury was informed that on the evening of his assault, Stephen Daniel was navigating through the Milton district when his Skoda was sideswiped by a Volkswagen Golf. As he accelerated to evade the threat, an Audi S3 entered the pursuit. The chase escalated, winding through the Postel area and ultimately reaching Craighall Road in Port Dundas. Daniel acknowledged reaching speeds of up to 100 miles per hour, even contemplating driving on the opposite side of the motorway to escape. However, his attempt to flee culminated in a crash at the M8 on-ramp in Port Dundas. Daniel testified that he had no memory of the attack itself, only recalling his vehicle spinning out of control into a pole. The court heard that he was subjected to repeated strikes with a cleaver, a hammer, and other bladed instruments. Stephen Daniel endured several weeks in the hospital undergoing treatments to mend the appalling injuries inflicted on his face. He spent the majority of this period under sedation. The defendants, Brian Ferguson, 37, Andrew Gallagher, 40, Robert Pickett, 53, Andrew Sinclair, 32, and Peter Bain, 45, were found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder following a 14-week trial, a proceeding that reportedly cost the taxpayers £6 million. After the verdict, the lead detective on the case expressed astonishment that no innocent bystanders were harmed during the half-year span of terror that gripped the Glasgow region. Detective Inspector Jim Bradley lauded the medical personnel for their life-saving efforts and expressed gratitude towards the witnesses who bravely came forward with vital testimony that led to the convictions. He highlighted the dangerous nature of the weapons involved in these crimes: machetes, meat cleavers, swords, and hammers, pointing out that the use of such weapons was almost certain to result in death or severe, lifelong injuries. But for the timely and expert medical intervention, several victims would likely not have survived. Bradley remarked on the attackers' total disregard for the safety of innocents nearby during their planned violent acts. In one harrowing instance, a victim was pursued into a neighbor's house, leading to a scenario where the homeowner awoke to find an assault happening in their home under the cover of darkness. D.I. Bradley further explained that the gang meticulously planned their assaults by installing tracking devices on the vehicles of their intended victims, closely monitoring their movements for weeks, even months, prior to striking. This meticulous surveillance extended to lying in ambush, waiting for the perfect moment to attack their targets in their vehicles or near their homes. It was nothing short of miraculous that no innocent bystanders were harmed or worse in these outbreaks of violence. The convicted individuals were commissioned by higher-ups within criminal organizations to execute these violent acts in exchange for payment, targeting people they had never met. According to Bradley, these perpetrators are regarded as expendable by the top tier of criminal networks. In the month following the trial, all the convicted men received a combined prison sentence of 104 years for their involvement in the assaults on Daniel and the 4 other men. Judge Lord Mulholland remarked that the intricate scheme was unraveled through diligent, traditional police work. Ferguson and Gallagher each received a sentence of 20 years. Pickett was sentenced to 16 years. Bain received 15 years. And Sinclair was given a term of 13 years and 3 months. An additional 35-year-old individual, whose identity is protected for legal reasons, was also sentenced to 20 years. The demeanor of some among the convicted seemed indifferent to the verdict and the severity of their sentences. Gallagher was observed making a clenched fist gesture as he was escorted out. Ferguson appeared to salute his supporters present in the courtroom, and Bain was seen smiling and giving a thumbs up. Before issuing the sentences, Lord Mulholland addressed the 6 men, stating, "You have turned this city into a battlefield for your vendetta. This is a civilized city, founded on the principles of law and order. There is absolutely no room for this kind of behavior, revenge, or primitive justice here." Remarkably, Stephen Daniel testified, claiming he was oblivious to any animosity between the Lyons and Daniel families. The judge expressed his skepticism, saying, "I did not believe a word of it, and more significantly, neither did the jury." Despite being severely mutilated and nearly losing his life in the brutal assault, Daniel refused to acknowledge the attack as part of the ongoing rivalry between the Lyons and Daniel factions. It appears that the Italian mafia's code of silence or omerta plays a significant role in the gang culture of Glasgow. Share your thoughts and feedback in the comments section below. If you found my investigative analysis insightful, please be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the Pursuit of Perpetrators channel. Don't forget to hit the bell icon too so you'll get notified each time I release a new video. I appreciate your support and look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Until then, stay curious and keep seeking truth.